Welcome to the Ring of Fire podcast, episode number 4. In today's episode, I am excited to welcome on Alix. I call her Alix Fire Fairy. That was just my fun name for Alix when we originally met back in the day. And we call each other dear friends, dear as in like a deer. So Alix is an amazing artist, a graphic artist. She paints and draws and does illustrations and writes children's stories and makes puzzles and does greeting cards. She's also a teacher of art as well. Today, I am excited to welcome Alix on for creative inspiration and to share with you a little bit about her path and her story. Please be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, as well as share the content with anyone who you think might appreciate today's episode. Also, comment and share what little bits of insight and inspiration you find in today's episode. Thank you and enjoy this episode. I now go forward to welcome on Alix Fire Fairy. Welcome, Alix Fire Fairy, to the Ring of Fire podcast. How are you?
Hello, doing good. How are you?
Awesome. Get a little bit giggly because we're such good friends and have known each other for so long. So it's kind of like we're doing an official
Almost 20
podcast.
years, I think, at this point.
Yeah, let's be serious and do a podcast. Okay. Put on my serious face. All right. So the burning question I like to ask everyone that I'm doing so far on these interviews, because this is the Ring of Fire, is I'm going to take you way back. How'd you get into fire dancing?
Oh my goodness. That was like 20 years ago, getting into fire dancing. I saw people twirling fire and decided I wanted to do it. Very simple. Where did I first see them twirling fire? I don't even remember. Santa Cruz, Burning Man, different places at festivals, lots of places. So I saw it, knew I wanted to get into it. I actually had a school project at Sac State at the time, and we had to like choose a topic and write an article about it. I chose fire poi, and I wrote about like the ancient New Zealand's fire poi, and I wrote this whole paper for a school project. And then I fast forwarded it into ordering lots of different fire performance props and toys.
Awesome. What was your favorite always fire prop to work with?
Oh goodness. That's like a kid asking who's your favorite kid. I can't say like one or the other. That's like, who do you love more, me or me? I love you all the same. Um, I love fire poi. I love fire fans. I love those palms. Lots of different things. And it just depends on what the dance is trying to accomplish. And then of course the mood of what you're trying to express as a creative artist.
Absolutely. And I love it because in one of the earlier podcasts, I shared the story of how we met, of how like, connecting through Aaron and then meeting up at the park, and kind of that was the spark of our friendship and our connection. And I always distinctly remember the show that we did at the Horse Cow with the dragon's head that you made.
The fire dragon.
The fire dragon, the really funny fire dragon. So yeah, exactly. So you did fire for quite a long time, and then life called you in different directions. What's your path like? Where did it take you? So it was a creative avenue for you, obviously, at the time, right? But you have other creative channels that you work through. So why don't you tell everybody who you are and what you do?
I do a lot of things. My name is Alixandra Mullins Poling, and right now I'm working on illustrating some children's books and setting up my online store with my art and my art licensing and writing. I'm finishing a novel, all of which have fire as elements. Like I have a story about a dragon that is in a wildfire. I have a novel that I'm not done with. It's only on draft 3 maybe, but it has a lot of fire in it, and it has there's always elements of fire within my creative work. And then I have some art licensing that I do, and then I'm also teaching quite a bit of visual arts. What was the rest of the question?
Yeah, you did. So I love that it's like, even though you maybe aren't fire dancing anymore, the same way that it was way back in the day when we were doing it, the fire as an element has woven into your stories and your artwork in other ways. Like you said, you said a children's story with a fire breathing dragon in it. Is that what you said?
Sort of, actually. It's a children's story about earth dragons who live in a forest, and then a wildfire comes and they have to leave. And everybody's always like, thought dragons could breathe fire. Why are they running away from a wildfire? And the wildfire is too big and too gigantic because of climate issues that it's even reached the magical fairy tale realms. And then you also see the regular animals like mountain lions and bears running away from this fire. So yeah, the dragon is not a fire-breathing dragon. He is an earth dragon running away from a fire, which I have to explain often to people. And it is not published yet. This is a picture book that I have ready to go that I am trying to query with, but it has not found a home yet.
Yeah, there's several components here and things that I'm thinking about. One thing that I've always really loved about you is your imagination. And like I remember when you were doing the greeting cards and the photos, and you were doing the graphic art there for a while. And I loved how, you know, there'd be an environment and you'd put like your house cat on the lily pad in the forest. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's really funny. It doesn't really belong there, but it does. It totally belongs. And you're so good at it. It was like, to the average person looking at the image, you would have you would have never really thought, oh, there's a house cat sitting on a lily pad in a pond.
That's
Um,
right, I did do that. That was a long time ago, but yeah, I did do that. I recall.
but it's inspiring because how you were able to take photography and Photoshop and like, I guess, illustration and blend all of these components together into like using real art that you were making, you know, not like today with the AI, but it was like you were actually taking the pictures, all the different components, and putting it together. And then
Yeah, I
really
have a
good
lot
with
of
Photoshop.
photography equipment that you can't see sitting next to me that I still do. I go out and take photographs constantly and integrate them into work. Though, like you're saying with AI right now has, you know, essentially taken and eaten like a vacuum thousands and thousands and thousands of paintings and illustrations and photographs off the internet so that it can regurgitate its own, you know, plagiarism stolen material into making generative AI. So I'm making less digital art right now as a result of that. It's been kind of demotivating in that area. And I've spent a lot more time drawing and painting with tactile material instead, which is a blast to the past for me for doing that because I spent so long doing digital media tools for visual arts that it's been interesting to get back into traditional media. But AI is kind of part of what was driving me to go back to pen and paper and pencils and paint.
Yeah, I love that. I love how your way of like how actually it's like you went through the world of the graphics, and then as the world came more online with the AI, you were like, you know, I'm going back to the paper, and the way that the art actually comes through me in a really organic way.
Well, and I teach digital illustration. I still love digital media. I do see that the AI is severely impacting a lot of digital media artists because the average person is confused by, oh, it was done on a computer, therefore now it's artificial intelligence. Oh, you didn't make that. And a digital artist could still spend hours and hours and days drawing and painting digitally to make something amazing. However, people might not understand that now that AI has, so to speak, tainted everything. So it's a little harder to explain to a lot of people. So if you have your drawn originals, that also has, you know, some impact, I think.
Everything happens in like a wave, right? So it's like right now there's this big AI art thing going on, and it'll too do its probably drop. It might grow for a while, but ultimately there will still be people that will value like the original arts, you know, like
I do
real
hope
artists
so. I
making
do
real
feel
art.
like AI has really cheapened visual arts in general. Like people suddenly think, enter four words and poof, there's an image, and nobody can be impressed. Whereas a traditional artist, you know, they're spending a week, they're spending a month drawing and painting one picture that AI could supposedly make, you know, in 30 seconds or 65 seconds. And so it sort of cheapens it. But again, if you can see a painting in front of you with the brush strokes and the pen strokes and the pencil marks, maybe it will have more meaning. And I certainly hope it will, for sure.
Definitely for me, when you say that, I think that it definitely has a different energetic signature, because when an artist puts their energy, time, and creativity into a piece of work, and then that art is there, there's a different feeling than when something is made within a split second and it's there. There's a different weight to it. It feels differently. And yeah, I hope that people will stay tuned into that. Let's talk about your like creative process. Like, you know, you live your life very creatively, and that like everything you do is about like art. You teach, you said graphic design, you teach art. Like, so what is your creative process? Like, however you want to answer that.
It depends which creative process. So like picture books, we'll take a picture books because I've been focused on picture books for the last several years since the pandemic. I've been focused on picture books. So creative process on something like that, I'll walk you through. First, I'm somewhere, I'm walking in a field, I'm walking in a forest, or I'm, meditating or doing yoga or something, and an idea just floats into my brain out of nowhere, like an idea of something. Magical flowers, fire, dragons floating in the air, whatever that idea is, I get this idea and it starts with writing and I write it down. And I have this really kind of tiny little idea journal that I keep all the ideas, and they're always story ideas. So it starts with an idea, then usually a couple of days later, or maybe several times later, I will have that idea manifest into more of a story. So then I will spend some time writing a story, usually again in a journal, handwriting, and I'm trying to think if I have a journal nearby, and I probably do. I have several of them. So I keep stacks and stacks of these. Everything's falling over. Stacks and stacks of these golden journals that I write in all the time. So I've got like 20 of them, 30 of them. So I write a story. Then maybe a couple of days later, I will type up the story, or I will start drawing images from this same inspirational vision in my sketch pad. Sometimes the drawings come first, sometimes the story comes first. It just kind of depends. Once I have that, then I'm usually back into writing, and I'm editing pretty strictly and trying to break things down, usually into like an average picture book's 32 pages. So I'm trying to pace out a story over that. And then I will send off the story to a critique group or friends or partners. And they will come back, there will be changes. So there's this writing process. But then the visual part, I will storyboard it onto like different pieces of paper. So you can see like the process, like page 1 and 2 is going to have this on it. Page 3 and 4 is going to have this on it. And I'll go all the way through. And then once I've got that, I'll usually send that off or show that to somebody. And then from there, I will go and make a final drawing and a final piece of artwork to put it into like a dummy layout. And then from there, I will go and finish it and paint onto it and get it. So it is actually kind of a long process. But being an artist, I have so many sketch pads from different times of my life and so many journals that are filled with different ideas. So taking like one idea out of a journal, like a seed, and making it grow into a tree usually takes a lot of time and effort. Unless, of course, you have the people who are like, I used AI to write a children's book or a book in a weekend. I am not that person. Mine takes a long time. The story I just finished, the dummy for, has taken me like 3 months to just kind of get sketched out, and it's not even done. It's just like all the editing, all the writing, all the layout, like that. So that's the creative process for stories. Now, creative process for like a dance performance, you could talk more about that than me.
Yeah, so I want to stay with the thread in what you're talking about, because I love it, because what you're describing takes a lot of commitment and determination and focus to have that initial inspiration and then to carry it through that whole process. And I'm just thinking, you know, I'm an idea generator. I come up with lots of ideas, so many that it's hard to make them all happen,
You
right?
do. So many ideas, you can't make them all happen. You have to pick
Yeah,
your special gems.
right. So how do you decide which special gems to pull on?
The one that bothers you at 3 a.m. that goes, hello, you can't let go of this. Hello, you're obsessed with this. Hello, make it happen. Those are the ones that get carried through because you have this intrinsic artistic drive that is like, finish this particular concept because it's in your heart, it's in your spirit. You can't stop thinking about it. You can't stop reading about it. That's really what it is, when it saturates your subconscious so much that you have to finish the project. And then all the ideas that don't matter so much, I've got plenty of those too, like rainy day ideas that I could go back to when I want to. But the ones that really drive me are the ones that bother me that come at 3 in the morning and I can't go back to sleep because this idea is in my head, or I have to write it down. And until I write it down, it's not going to let me go. Like I can't move on with my day unless I write it down. And then if I write it down 3 or 4 times, oh, I have a drawing of it. Oh, I have a painting of it. Oh, I have a sketch of it. And I have 3 different stories about that topic. I probably need to explore that topic.
Do you ever lose momentum or get, distracted or run into challenges in your process? And what do those look like?
Yes, of course I do. Everybody does. Well, I've got 3 children, so those can sometimes interfere with that. It just depends on scheduling. If I can get a 4-hour time block per day to work on creative stuff, I can usually make stuff happen. Sometimes life gets in the way of that, especially for artists. I'm, working as a teacher, as an arts teacher, and then I'm teaching community college classes also, so that can get in the way. I just have to structure and schedule so that I get the work time. And then this is going to sound funny, but sometimes my work is influenced by celestial events. Like I'll start a project on the new moon, and by the full moon, I'm way, way, way into it. But sometimes I will get knocked off track and I will lose focus and I will have to drop a project, or I will have to put the project on simmer, so to speak, so that I can come back to it later. So I have a drawing of, it's called the creative stove or the story stove. And it's all these different things that I'm cooking. And then there's one pot boiling, and that's, a novel. And then I've got another pot boiling, that's a picture book. And then over on the side, there's like a couple bowls of different project. And then the illustration that I'm talking about, there's an oven, and then there's other projects I'm working on. They're like little muffins. So I can have all these different things. And I have way too many projects that I am working on, to be honest with you.
So you have a lot cooking right now.
I have a lot simmering. I have one that's cooking.
Okay, you have a lot simmering, one that's cooking. Gotcha. And you mentioned like with your creative process, like it usually involves you, like walking, doing yoga or meditating or walking somewhere. Is that how you shift with all the different, like from kids to teaching college classes or community college classes? How do you get in the zone? Like when it's time to sit down and work on a project, do you just shift from one to the next, one task to
No,
the next, or is there a ramp in?
I think getting into the zone is different for different people. And the inspiration, I once had a creative writing teacher say that inspiration is like a flash of lightning. You never know when it's going to strike or where it's going to strike. So you could be driving in your car, you could be grocery shopping, you could be, yeah, I'm meditating. You could be driving to school, you could be walking in a field with your dog. I mean, you could be doing all these different things, and you don't really know when that inspiration is going to strike. And it's hard to plan it. You hear about artists who sit down and they're like, I'm going to write this thing now, and they're ready to go. And then they're blocked, or they have a blank page staring at them, or a blank canvas, and they don't know what to do. I think that's where the importance of journaling comes in, so that I do all this other inner work and creative thinking in other places, like on a drive, listening to the radio, like I said, walking, sometimes when I'm on a road trip, when my husband is driving, I am drawing as we're just kind of driving. So I actually have recognized the need to be outside of my studio to get inspiration quite frequently.
So it's like you go outside of the studio to get the inspiration, and then you go into the studio to focus on it and to keep like cultivating and growing what you're,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it will help me even if I have a walk before I go in to create stuff. Today I'm going to work on these drawings, so I already know what I'm doing before I even open the door.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very helpful, rather than you get in there and you're like, what am I going to do? Like, it's a different thing.
Yeah. Do you ever go and sit down to like work on, you feel like you're inspired to work on a project that you started, and you go sit down to work on it, and then you sit there and you realize that you're like, for some reason, you're not as inspired as you thought you were?
Yeah, you're suddenly going to work on this other project over here, and oh, this project over here needs a little bit of red color on it, or yes, totally.
Yeah.
But that comes down to self-discipline and focus. And then I have this do list it's like a mile long sometimes, like, because I feel like I'm doing too many things.
Mhm.
So it comes down to focus. Sometimes I'll write little notes to myself, like, work on this today, and like I'm not allowed to do anything else, but the temptation to do something else is of course always there.
Yeah, one thing that's really cool about you and art as well is how successful you've been able to be with like your life as an artist. Like I remember back in the day when you started doing the greeting cards and had an agent, and you were able to like get your work out there. So it was more than just making art that was going to hang out on your own wall, right? It was that there was that, but it was like you were able to successfully find channels for your art to go through that, help support you in some capacity. Do you have any, I guess, information or advice for people who are artists who might be listening to this about how they can
Well,
not?
art licensing was a big deal for me. I think I started doing it in 2004, and it was really motivating for me. This was pre-AI. I have to say this because now there is such a saturation of art everywhere. I think licensing might be getting affected, and the value of art, visual art in general, has maybe it's getting impacted. However, let me backtrack. So art licensing is the idea that you have a piece of art and you license the copyright to a manufacturer, like a greeting card company or a puzzle company. And they have designs like happy birthday, happy Mother's Day, all these different things. And they send out a list and you submit art and then they publish it for you. But they don't own the art. They license the copyright. They have permission to use the art. Just like a radio station has permission to play a song, a greeting card company or a puzzle company has permission to use your art, and they'll send you, a little amount or a royalty based on what that is, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up with an art agent, a licensing agent back in 2005. And then I got a different licensing agent in 2011. And they are still helping my art kind of go out into the world in different places. Though my own focus is shifting a little into storytelling for the next part of my life creatively, I think.
So how is that different for you? Is it the process, like meaning that, so you had the art licensing with the graphic work and now with the storytelling, like what's the plan to like make that be successful for you?
Well, the plan for storytelling, that is a long drawn out thing. So I've been writing stories for years and years and years, filling up my journals, but I haven't done a whole lot with them. And then 2020 with COVID, I decided the world was ending and I needed to do something. If I like the bucket list of your life, hey, if we're all gonna die from a plague, which at the time I thought, in March 2020, I was like, what have I not done that I need to do? And it was storytelling. So I actually enrolled in a graduate program and I am finishing an MFA in picture book writing and illustration. So I'm an MFA candidate right now and I'm almost done. I'm so close to being done. And then part of the thesis is make 3 picture books, make the dummy, get them all ready, get the creative process down, and then, send them off into the world. Of course, you have to submit them to this committee at a university and they have to evaluate it. And you have to write this long critical paper about, your concepts and your ideas and your inspirations and all that stuff as well. So I call it a nurture bubble, like an MFA program where I could just nurture my creativity into these projects and get instruction, and get critiqued and learn about critical processes. So the next step for me, once I finish that, will be to try to find a literary agent to help me have that stuff published. I do have a 5-year plan that if I don't find that, or I don't find the right connection, then I will self-publish. But I've already self-published a couple books and I really would prefer not to do that if I don't need to.
Mm-hmm. Well, considering how successful you've been with your art in general, I would tend to lean towards thinking you're going to also be successful with this endeavor as well. And I like what you said about the nurture bubble with your art. And it was like as you were shifting from one modality to another, you entered into school where you could nurture and grow and learn. And like I'm thinking about, I did the same thing with school with the dance side of it. And that was where I really saw everything take off for me as well, was when I actually started like studying choreography and studying things in a way. And it's funny because remember how against choreography I was way back in the day?
I recall.
No choreography. And then it became like all the choreography.
I
Um,
recall this.
yeah. So do you have anything you want to share that with people, your art, any images or anything you want to share?
I can share some pictures. Give me just a second here and I will pull some stuff up. I just had some of my pictures in an exhibit over, well, the exhibit's hanging all year. I'm just one artist there's like 75 or 100 artists. But I am in a exhibit with STBWI Western Washington, which is the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And I just had some work, one piece that was put in for that, and I'll share that in just a second here. I'm just going to open it up so that you can see it, and then I'll share my screen here. So first I'm going to talk about this fire dragon. You want me to share right now?
Sure.
So this is a picture from that story I was saying. You asked me if it was a fire breathing dragon, and I said no, it was a fire, and here's the dragon's nest. Can you see it? Over
Yes.
here on the left. And the dragons are all fleeing this giant mega wildfire. Now, I previously lived in Santa Cruz where we had the lightning fire in 2020. It came within 4 miles of our house. So I had wildfires burned into my subconscious. And like I said, I have a whole bunch of writing about wildfires and how that affects people. Just having been in this place where ash was falling like snowflakes all around us, and then driving through all the fires. So this is one of the images that I made. And again, this is a story that has not been published. It's a story I'm working on getting published, but it's about a family of dragons, and the mama dragon's here. And then the mama dragon has 3 children dragons, and they are fleeing a wildfire. And here's the little nest. And a lot of people in Northern California, in lots of places now at this point, have lost their homes due to wildfire. So the nest really symbolizes like a home, and all these creatures, mountain lions and bears and raccoons and owls and even dragons are all losing their homes due to these mega fires that have happened. So that was a big thing. Anyway, there's a whole story, and there's probably I think there's at least 18 different illustrations for this story. And then I'll
And
show
you
you.
drew this, right?
I drew this with pencil. I have all of these drawings like sitting right next to me that I'm like, should I show you them or not? But yeah, I drew it with pencil, and then I went back and I photographed the pencil drawing, and then I painted digitally using Corel Painter, and using one of these like little Wacom stylus pens.
And how to do things like use Corel Painter. Is that what you're teaching people how to do?
Technically my current class is digital illustration with Adobe Illustrator, so not exactly, but that's because the colleges dictate the different course content sometimes.
Right.
And then here's another piece of art. This is the one that was just can you see this? Like a blue
Yes.
pin? This is
Yes.
the one that is currently hanging in the show in Seattle right now at the Seattle Convention Center. And this is a whole different story. And it's about mermaids. And this particular story was about some mermaids they were in a mermaid grotto, and there was a king tide, which is a huge gigantic storm, and their grotto was washed away and wiped away. So they lost their home due to a natural disaster. Also, there's a theme here. And then they are migrating into the Great Migration. And the themes of this particular story are just about climate change and how it impacts all these people. And there's so many refugees who are affected by the climate crisis, and there will be, upcoming. So I started with fantasy creatures with a dragon and with a mermaid, and now I'm just about to start illustrating next week a story about actual people who aren't fantasy creatures in the real world, but I haven't got there yet. But this is just another example of one of my pictures that I'm working on. And then this one, like I said, I'm also trying to have this one find a publishing home, and it's a 32-page picture book with a whole bunch of drawings and illustrations about this mermaid family and the mermaid mama with her 2 mermaid daughters, and the things that happen to them while they are swimming away from this storm and this tidal wave that came and destroyed stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love the colors in both of them. And I like how you're, taking something you're passionate about and using your creativity to tell the story and to kind of teach and write about it as well.
Cool. Yeah. So that's some of the drawings I've done.
There's this path, but I also know you have a website and I think you were making like art on yoga mats and other things too, right? Are you still doing that?
I'm doing on my creative stuff. Yeah. I can show you that, or I can show
Yeah.
you here. I was actually in the middle of updating it right before we hopped on here. I have a couple websites, but I'll show you my store website. And I will preface this by saying I had a different website, and actually AI stole all my artwork off of my website and sucked it into Stable Diffusion. And I found this out from a friend who emailed me last year. Hey, your art's on haveibeentrained.com. And so I took down my entire art website that I've had for years and years and years because of AI. And so this new website that I've built, you can't really see the artwork that well, but that's kind of deliberate because every artwork I have put on the internet since 2004 got vacuumed up by AI, and it got sucked into training AI without my permission, with no compensation, nothing. So anyway, I'll share my my website that I have now, which again, the artwork it's a lot smaller. You can't really see it. And again, that's on purpose. So I'll click share screen. But here it is. Can you see? So here's my, so now it's set up more like products, and there's these like little things that pop up, and notice that the pictures are incredibly small. Unfortunately, I would make them bigger, but again, AI is such an issue right now. Like you kind of click on this and you can see, here's this picture. I had to watermark everything, and it's still, AI doesn't care. AI will reproduce stuff with watermarks on it sometimes, because there's no ethics happening with that. I'm getting a not responding. Oh, there it is. Okay, so you can just kind of see, here's a poster, and this is one of my more popular images. It's been reproduced as a poster around the world, as a greeting card. I'm a few different things. So I've taken some of my art, but I have so much art that I just took it off the web because of what's been going on. And that supposedly there's this thing now called Nightshade, which allows you to put as a filter over your artwork when it's in digital form, that supposedly poisons the AI when it sucks it in and it like confuses it and tells it false information. I haven't done that because it sounds really complicated, so I just haven't got there yet. But you can just kind of see I have different products on here. Yoga mats. Where are the yoga mats? They might be on my social media channel instead, but I have things like stickers and things like tote bags. I even have a beach towel that I made. A lot of this is, I've been kind of playing around with product design. During the pandemic, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out like, oh, here's how
You
to
even
do
have yoga pants?
yeah, I have yoga pants. I was
That's
making
pretty cool.
shirts. But this is not showing my actual store for some reason. So give me my whole store. My store is on Etsy, and then I have a store that's my own store, and then I have like this Instagram store, because the social media during the pandemic started giving everybody stores. So let me see if I can put on the Etsy
So
store.
if somebody wants to buy your arts, like where do they go? To your Etsy store? Is that where you want them to go?
Well, they can go to alixart.net if
Uh-huh.
they really just want to find me. But some of the stuff that's here is not is available. There's more stuff other places as well. So like this, can you see this website now? This is Etsy, right? So Etsy, I have cool things like bags and candles happening,
Cool.
and like these cool like robes that are from, giant drawings and illustrations that I've done. But I don't have this on my, there's a lot of tech stuff that goes on to set up all this stuff. So it's kind of a headache. So
Yeah.
I have it where I have it because it's just easier.
Yeah, kudos to you because it is not easy. Like I've tried to do a lot of this stuff too, and it's not easy to do.
It's a
And
huge
I get
headache.
really lost in the tech side of it. So
So here's like this little purse here started out as a drawing in my sketch pad, and then I went and colored it and painted it, and then I got it formatted so it could be printed on a product. So that's the kind of stuff that I like to kind of do. And like this one, for instance, is a bag. Actually, I'll be right back. I have the drawings for that one.
yeah, this is actually one of the things that I've really actually loved about you and your art is your ability to like take these images and then create them into something that like somebody could get this cool handbag and walk around with it. And it's super cute and stylish, and the art is amazing. And it was made by a real artist on top of it.
So like you can see here's like the original. Okay, so you can kind of
That's a
see,
real artist studio for anybody watching.
yes. So
Oh,
here's kind
yeah.
of like the original drawing. Actually, that's not the same one, actually. I just realized that's a different one. I think it's this one. So here's like the drawing, and this one's packaged because I do like the little art boots too, but can you see it now?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so you can see that. And then, I have a bunch, I have a ton of stuff, but I format them. I figured out a long time ago, some people want to buy art to hang on their walls, but other people will say, oh, I don't have any wall space. So I got into like, let's make purses, let's make all these other things with the pictures that, don't necessarily have to be on a wall. Like here's a candle that it's like, just like a cool little piece of art that is like stickered onto a product. So you can kind of just see, but my favorite thing right now are actually these little purses and these little robes, because robes are fun. You just take all the this was like magic marker, actually. Not magic marker, paint pens. I shouldn't call it a magic marker. Paint pens. And then I had somebody kind of, there's like a little video. Somebody was modeling this little, like, you can see the robe, like how, like the product is print, like the design is printed on the robe. So it's kind of a neat thing. You can see there's
That's
just all
super
these.
cool. Like, I love it.
So I've ordered a couple of these robes as product samples because I have to make like product videos to show them, and they're super cool, and it makes me thrilled to see, here's my drawing from my sketch pad and now it's printed on, like, you can print it on silk and chiffon and all this stuff. So I have a bunch of that, and then here's just kind of this little like crossbody purse that it's like my drawing from my sketch pad that I've put onto this purse, but then I sponge painted all like the background behind it, things like that. So the thing is, with AI can now spit out designs every 60 seconds. So a lot of people who are selling on Etsy are suddenly selling AI generated stuff. They're not selling stuff that has been hand drawn or hand painted or anything. So it's a little like tricky landscape right now for a lot of artists who are just trying to get by or trying to make stuff, because of the tech bros kind of coming in there with these apps and not really caring if they put artists out of business.
Yeah, so it's good. So yeah, if people are, if watching this or knowing like a real artist, to like support the artist directly and to check in and see if it's art they made or if it's AI art. And I know, yeah, you do events as well where you set up and sell your art.
I did one last year, but since COVID, I haven't done as many. COVID really impacted us. Just, we moved, we went to a new place, we thought the world was on fire, all that stuff. But you can see, here's me at an art tent in the Bay Area, selling my pictures on canvas. And you can see, this is funny over here. I have 3 sales on Etsy, but I've been on Etsy since 2011. And the reason why is I put all my energy into art licensing, where I didn't have to sell it and other people could sell it for me. And I'll share one more. I have a couple websites. This is the one I'm in the middle of revamping. Here's my illustration website. Art licensing is a big deal, but it's like my greeting cards and my puzzles. So I don't tend to sell my own stuff. I send it out so that manufacturers and companies can sell it for me instead. So like, here's greeting cards and then puzzle designs. I have puzzles probably in about 12 countries. It's like more probably, I don't even know, because I have my agent's based in London, so I have no idea where they're putting my art half the time. But I have like Bluebird puzzles, Schmidt puzzle, like little fairy tale library stuff. Let me see if I can flip through.
I see your art in greeting cards at a lot of the metaphysical stores. Like, wherever I am, I'll go somewhere. And then I love it because my mom at one point sent me a card, like a birthday or a holiday card or something, and it was your art on the card. And I was just like, wow, so cool.
Kind of random.
It was really random.
But you can see, actually, here's Erin is in this. She was part of this puzzle, the fire pixie. Like, you can see Cinderella, really tiny. And so I was doing lots of photos of people in like fairy tale lands and then putting them into all these designs, like dressing people up as mermaids and then photographing them. But all these little characters were actually real people that I photographed and put into the artwork, because there was a time where you couldn't type in AI, give me a centaur, give me Cinderella, give me a mermaid. You had to actually draw it or you had to photograph it to get the source imagery to make something. So that's kind of that's why it's such a game changer for so many artists. But you can see here, this is all like my photographic visual art with like, I photographed all these birds. I went to all these waterfalls, like this waterfall in the back is Mossbury Falls in Northern California, which you can't even go to now because they fenced it off for some reason. And then there's that same picture I showed you with the butterflies, but you can see, oh, that's it. So you can see a lot of this stuff.
And that's even yet another thing that you've done is the photographs where you have like all the mermaid tails and costume bits, and you have an event where like mother and children come and they get dressed up in mermaid tails and you photograph them, or fairy. Yeah.
So in 2009, I had my son, and then in 2011, I had my daughter. So when my daughter was born, from the moment she was born with like all these like people gave me all these dresses. So I started taking photos of my daughters dressed as like cute little fairy tale characters because they were cute and they liked dresses. So that turned into this whole other creative pathway, which was portrait photography and dress up and dressing people up as cute fairies and cute mermaids. And it's been something I love, and I can't let go of this. I think I will always photograph like cute little small children and people dressed as fantasy characters. I'm actually working on a storybook that's about fairies right now, and it's not going to be illustrated fairies. It's going to be people that are dressed up as fairies for the visuals for the book. But that one is kind of next in my queue of it's in the writing process right now. I haven't even started with anything else with it.
Yeah, you do so much. It's so inspiring, all of the different ways that you're working. Yeah, the photography, the illustration, the stories, the just all of it, and weaving it together into this creative way of living your life using your gifts and talents and being, just a source of inspiration and beauty in the world. You do really good work.
Yay. Thank you. I'm just like kind of strolling through some of the galleries here so you can see them. All these like mermaids that I have like all these mermaid tails. I know you had a mermaid tail at one point too. You still have it,
I
right?
think you have it now.
I have like a mermaid top of seashells, but yeah,
Oh, okay.
all
Yeah,
these
where's
pictures.
the tail went
And
then?
being a mom and having two daughters and a son, I got really into like mommy and me kind of like cute pictures, like a cute memory to have. So I did a lot of these mother-daughter mermaid portraits for people in Santa Cruz. I haven't done as many up here near Seattle, mostly because the beaches are kind of rocky and slimy. But
Yeah. Alex, I
fun.
have a question for how do you want people to support you? Like if somebody sees this, like I have two kind of final questions for you as we round this down. And the first one is, how do you want people to support you as an artist now? What can they do?
As an artist, I think buying directly from artists is the most helpful to them. So like either going to my alixart.net, and if they liked some of the art and they were willing to buy some of the art, that goes directly to me like immediately. So that's incredibly helpful. And then the other, if people want to have a photo shoot with me, they can come to my photo website here, which is alixartphotography.com, and they can, book a photo shoot with me as well. So those are the two things right now that I have set up my little businesses for. As far as publishing, at some point I'll say, buy my book, but they're not ready yet. They're still baking in the oven.
Yeah. And the photo shoots, you do them near where you are, near the Seattle area. However, sometimes you're also down in California as well, too, right? Do you still come down here and do them?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I usually get to Santa Cruz in Northern California 2 to 3 times a year, sometimes more, sometimes less. And I usually have like a bag of mermaid tails or like a bag of like fairy wings and fairy dresses and all the stuff. So I'm still doing them. Not as much as I used to prior to COVID, but I am still doing them. COVID was a whole other thing, as many people know. Like it impacted the ability to, take photos and get up close to people. So I took a big step back, but that was right when I was developing my stories and my illustration. So kind of a
Mhm.
natural progression.
Okay, and then yeah, anything else you want to share on your sites? Well, you've got your screen share up, or any images or art that you want to share.
I think, well, let me click stop share. I have one thing that's sitting on my drawing table, but I'm only going to share like 2 or 3 pictures of it. Have a stack of drawings that I've been working on. I might have to unblur. And again, they're not published. I'm not going to show all of them, but I'm working on another story. And it's really a story about peace because the world is in a funny place right now with some war. So I've got this story about a dove, and I'm just writing, it's more like a poem, but it's about peace. And there's this little dove character and all the things that happen to this little dove to try to find peace in the world, because clearly we've got some wars happening. So this is something that you can see. There are 18 drawings here on really thick watercolor paper that I am just getting ready to start. And this is a whole book that I have, but again, it's not ready, it's in process. But it is kind of a fun thing to share little pieces of it.
And just because you went blurred and we can see, like, that's what a real artist studio looks like, like that's your studio space, right?
It is, yeah.
That's what mad creation looks like, in a good way. It's like,
Well, you
you
can
know,
see I have like a little like loft up
yeah,
there, and like my greeting cards and my puzzles are kind of like
yeah,
off on the side. Like I have all the puzzles and products that I've made, like kind of can't really, you can sort of see them, but not really.
right. Now we're just getting
I'm gonna stop
dizzy.
making people this.
But no, I mean that's the thing with creativity is we're all different in how we run our creative processes for sure. But a lot of times when we get into the creation, we're just creating, drawing, creating, writing, going, and there can be a lot of chaos and a lot of disorganization in those places. And some people yet maybe inspiration and maybe their creativity is in a more different kind of a way, right? I know when I start getting creative, I make messes all over the place.
I like to have a really clean, organized studio space, believe it or not. However, um, I inevitably know once or twice a month it's gonna turn into a whirlpool of chaos, and that means I'm actually creating stuff and doing stuff, and there's ideas everywhere.
Well, you
Um,
have so much you're creating, it makes total sense. I mean, it's that wild, raw creative space.
Well, and
Yeah,
then I don't
so
want to clean it up. Like I have like my art bin to tell me go do another art show. So I deliberately left my print bin with all my stuff that I would take to a show sitting there to remind me, go get your art out there, go put it in like a gallery, go do stuff. So and then I had my photo backdrop set up for a long time in front of me because I was like motivating, like, hey, don't forget to like keep going with this photography business. But
right.
there is a point sometimes as an artist, you have to step back from some art projects to switch gears to other art projects. Like when you need to grow as an artist, sometimes things get staticky or stale and you need to bring other things into your life. So that's been a big thing for me, saying like I don't want to let go of my art and photography, but I really need to grow my illustration and my storytelling. And how do you balance that? So creatively, when you want to grow, you have to sometimes put stuff down for a little bit before you can to let yourself grow in other areas, which
Yeah.
is a hard thing to do sometimes, I think, for a lot of artists.
It's really hard. I had to stop making all those big board paintings and, I've cut way back. I'm not making big art anymore. And,
Because you have to store it.
I've got to store it and yeah, and it's just it doesn't move in the same way. And so, and I'm trying to channel the creativity in another direction at this point. And so, and that's been kind of a bumpy transition. Like when we have one medium through which the art really flows and we've been resonating with it, and then things like AI and life and all these other things come in and we have to find another channel to move it through. So that's why I said I loved your nurture bubble, because you went to school to really call that forward and to get the support and guidance to bring forward the storybooks. It was flowing in one way and you sought the avenue to really pull that forward. And that's awesome. So is there any last bits of advice or information you have for anybody who might be watching this, that anything you want to say to people right now that you want to put out in the world?
No, I would say if you're a creative person, that listening to your own intuition and your creative muses, finding your creative muses, listening to them, asking them what they want you to say or what your vision is, and kind of finding that. There was a professor actually at Poland's named Alexandra Lafay, and she gave this lecture on keeping your inspiration. And her advice, which is the most fantastic advice I've ever heard, was build a house for your muse. Like literally build a house. And my muses, a lot of them are fairy tale characters. So outside, I have like a fairy house in my garden. And she said at the time, her muse was, I think it was either a gnome or a troll. I forget. I think it might have been gnomes. So this person was like, whoever, whatever your muse is, build a house for your muse, feed your muse, like however you feed your muse, but a room in your apartment, a room in your house, an area in your yard where you have a muse. Some people like tigers or they like mountain lions and they, collect different animals or, whatever symbolizes your creative inspiration will kind of carry you through if you are a creative person and you need ideas and inspiration to bring into the world.
Yeah, I love that. Build a house for your muse
Yeah,
and nurture
best
it.
advice I ever heard.
Yeah,
And I
that's
had my fairy house before I heard that advice, just to say, like I already had it, but I liked hearing it. It gave me clarity that I wasn't crazy to have a fairy house in my yard.
well, and I feel like you've been building fairy houses or fairy realms and imagining. That's why I call you Alex Fire Fairy.
And that's nothing to do with the fire wings that we had 20 years ago that we were letting
No,
off,
no, nothing to do with the fire wings at all. It was
which are
just,
still being burned by people, apparently.
yeah, no, they're still being burned by people. I don't have those ones anymore. I have a different pair because those were hard to travel with.
You should
So
explain what they are so people
I,
know.
huh?
You should explain what they are to your
Yeah,
podcast.
they're wings that actually, Alex, you designed the idea of them, and then somebody that we know that you had make them, and they were like wings that hunt, like fairy wings. They had a little part that
It
went
was a
over the
metal
shoulder.
artist named Ray.
Yeah,
in
Ray Griswold. He
Syracuse
was a metal
Mountains.
artist, and I actually just ran into Ray not that long ago. Actually, it was
And
really
the original idea, actually, I have to say, Amy Brown's fairy illustrations. Like I showed Ray Amy Brown's fairy illustrations and said, "Hey, can you make something like this?" And then I drew something that was sort of similar. So it was her inspiration that I drew that gave to Ray for his inspiration. So it went through like 4 different people's creative brains, I think.
yeah. And you had the first pair,
I did, yes.
and I had the second pair, and
Yeah.
I don't know if there were other pairs made.
I have no idea, but I know he was selling them at festivals for a while, I
Okay.
believe. I believe. But anyway, yeah, so you wear these wings on your back while you're performing in a show, and then they had wicks and you could light them on fire and dance with them, which was kind of fun and kind of hot.
Yeah, it was kind of fun and
Hot as
fun.
in like it's gonna burn you from the fire hot.
Yeah, and the ones I have now are not quite as like Amy Brown interesting, but they have screw and wicks. So I can unscrew the wicks and it's got a little small like fairy thing and then the wicks just extend way out. So they're not as branchy and decorative as the other ones, but they're more functional. They're still cool looking. They're just a little different. So yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, Alex, thank you for sharing and coming on today to talk a little bit about creativity and to inspire people to go build a house for their muse.
Thanks for having me. It was
Yeah,
great to
thank
talk.
you. Awesome. Bye.